You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from the critique of the short story through to line edits on full-length novels. We also offer assistance on generating writers' bios for your websites. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
I'm not ready to end the fight. I'm not ready to back down. 'Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. 'Cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
All right, folks, good evening. And yeah, just for a second there, I was still muted and didn't realize it. Hey, I'm doing a radio show on cold medicine. Don't judge me. All right, so anyway, this is the Jenn and Rick Show. I'm one half of the crew, Mr. Rick Robinson. She is the other half, Miss Jen Homestead. And it's been a bit since we've been together because I have been not only under the weather, but buried by the weather for about 7 days running now. Speaking of which, little announcement, there will not be an America Off the Rails show this evening. I have already determined that my voice will not hold up for 2 hours, especially since I got to do 2 hours tomorrow night with Dan. So we're going to leave this one up for 2 hours, so if you come in late, there will not be an America Off the Rails. I'll make the announcement again at the end. But you can listen to this one if you come in late all the way back through again, because we'll leave it up till the next one drops. All right, so anyway, this is Jen and Rick. I'm one half of the crew, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Actually, Jen, I noticed right before we went on air, somebody sent me a link of a little gif of some, 13-year-old kid that set a fire outside of the deplorable, and they interviewed him about why he set the fire. And he said, because I wanted to say, screw our president. Kid looks like Dennis the Menace, and was just interviewed on national TV saying, because I wanted to say, screw our president. What country do we live in?
Oh, my gosh.
But, I mean, look, Look,
this has become acceptable too. This has become like, and not just acceptable, it's become encouraged by the left to do these things. It's just crazy. Like, poor kid.
It's complete and total indoctrination, and I don't understand what's going on, because if we had acted this way for the last 8 years, we would have already been arrested and like deported and called racist and bigots and whatever else that everything else they could throw at us. But now that the shoe's on the other foot, all of a sudden they're heroes because they're standing up against Donald Trump. Look, folks, I'm going to say it again. I didn't vote for the man. But the simple fact of the matter is, come tomorrow at, noon Eastern, he's going to be president. There's not really anything anybody can do about it now, short of doing something that we're not going to talk about on the air, because apparently CNN has already got everybody all talking about that because they decided to talk about the line of secession today. So everybody started freaking out and saying, oh my God, CNN is suggesting that people should assassinate Trump. No, they were piquing people's interest because there's this really popular show on right now called Designated Survivor that talks about the very same thing. So they were trying to get some brownie points by maybe getting some people's attention. I don't think anybody at CNN was saying, hey, we should shoot President Trump. I really don't think that was their plan. I hope not, anyway.
Yeah, I do agree. I think a bunch of people were really flipping out about this, and while I do think it's pretty morbid to be discussing, and I don't think they would be doing this they wouldn't have been doing this in front of Obama's inauguration, but I think that, and it would have been in poor taste, I feel like the media would have thought it was in poor taste, and people would have thought it was in poor taste to talk about his assassination or possible assassination of multiple main, figures in our government. But I think you're right. I think it's kind of much ado about nothing. It's something that people can get really worked up over, but I think it's because of the popularity of the show and the fact that a lot of people didn't know that was even a thing. And so it's been tied, they're kind of tying it all in and, drumming up some interest and trying to, get a few more viewers to follow along on this ride than are currently. I think it's silly and probably not the best thing to be discussing on like headline news at the top of the hour with around the dinner table, but whatever.
The biggest thing about it is everybody started showing all the screen captures where they had the little thing at the bottom where it said something about discussing line of secession, and everybody starts looking at that picture going, what are they talking about? And I'm like, look, okay, so yes, it was in poor taste. It was probably something that shouldn't have been done, but let's think about it for a second. CNN has had sagging ratings now for a while, especially now since Trump won the election. Everybody's going back to Fox News because everybody's like, oh my God, Trump won and Fox called it and Hannity's the greatest and yada yada and blah. But anyway, so they're over here with their ratings going, what do we do, guys? So yeah, you're complaining about it and you're talking about the fact that they need to be boycotted, but you've given them nothing but wall-to-wall attention on Twitter all day long. So what do you think people are doing? They're tuning in to see what all the hubbub is about. So you're doing the exact opposite of what you say you want to do when you give news stories like this attention. Just saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if people didn't really understand and just like saw a clip, that they'd be like, wait, what? Why on earth are they talking about this? And certainly no, I think it's pretty unique to Trump, but I also think it's because of, the other things that are current right now. So, and they're going to run with it for as long as it's getting clicks and getting people talking about it.
And that's exactly what they were trying to do. They were getting people to talk about it. They were getting people engaged, and they were making sure that their name was all over it. Because again,
absolutely,
and honestly, some of this Trump has brought on himself because the media has watched him work them for the last 18 months. And now they've figured out some of the things that he did to get everybody's attention, and now they're figuring out ways to do the same thing. Because let's not forget, all of this stuff is ratings driven. News isn't about information anymore. News is about market share. And the more of that market share you can get, the more important of a channel you look like. And that is one of the things that in my opinion, has killed the news industry. Because when it became for profit, as opposed to for the dissemination of information, we lost something. Because it became when it bleeds, it leads. And that's all you see and hear about in the news anymore, is anything negative you can possibly find is what's in the news. And then they give you a little 5-second snippet of some cute Popey pictures posted from Facebook or something. And then they're back to, and this morning at this 7-Eleven and blah, 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 there were 3 people shot in a drive-by shooting. And then this happened and this place caught on. And we've done it to ourselves because we're no longer interested in getting information as much as we are in being entertained. And I know that's a bad thing to say, right, as someone who runs a talk radio station whose primary purpose is giving information and also entertaining, but we don't pretend to be parts of the media or the press. I've never once said that I'm a member of the press. Anything that I write is typically laden with opinion. Any radio show is typically laden with opinion. I will take some news pieces and then we will discuss them. But I am not a part of the media, so therefore I'm not really pushing myself to make sure that we're giving nothing but the news. But people that, like Fox News, they have the word news in their name. And when is the last time you actually saw a legitimate actual news show on Fox News? What do they have, like 2? Out of like 24 hours of broadcasting, they have 2 that would actually pass as like some sort of a network news show. The rest of them are just opinion jocks like you and me. Except they get a camera instead of a microphone.
Right. I'm actually okay with all of that as long as it's not presented as news. The problem is just like the Daily Show or anything else, is that they are presenting it as such until they get caught with their pants down, and then they say, whoa, but I'm not a journalist. I'm just blah, 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 blah. And I have a real problem with that. Now, if they're up there saying I'm a political commentator and I am not a professional analyst, I am not I am not a journalist. I am not here to report to you. I am here to opine on things for you, and that's what you want to turn into, then that's fine. Let the pundits pundit. But it's the misrepresentation of pundits as reporters and as unbiased and without a lot of as fact instead of opinion that really kind of muddles everything and puts us in a position where people are very uninformed and minds are manipulated, quite frankly.
No, exactly. And, the interesting thing about watching all of this and all of the cries about the fake news, and now we've got Facebook talking about adding the fake news police into their website and doing all of these other little things to try to bring some sort of sense of actual journalism back to supposed news. The thing with all of that is most of the sites that are doing these supposed fake news stories, a lot of them don't actually present themselves as news sites. They'll tell you up front they're not. What happens, though, is somebody reads it, and it's like a satirical piece or something, and it plainly says that if you bother to look. But the thing about it is, it's not completely evident all the time. I will admit, when I first started running Facebook pages, I actually got caught with one once. I found a YouTube video that was put out by The Onion, and they had a little logo in the bottom of the screen, and it actually said The Onion News Network, but it looked almost exactly like the CNN logo, and it was so small I couldn't tell that it was an O instead of a C. So I'm like posting this thing all over the place, and they're like, did you bother to watch this thing all the way through before you started freaking out? And I'm like, no, because the first 2 minutes scared the crap out of me. And they're like, it's fake. And I'm like, crap. So part of it is these people put out these fake stories as satire on purpose, but they're trying to draw you in with a hook, and they're trying to make it as not evident as possible so that their site will get hits. So some of that is also the problem. But again, the other problem at this point is we have an entire group of people that don't even know how to do their own research. We have information at our fingertips more than I have ever seen in my lifetime. You can literally ask your phone any question on the planet, and it can find an answer for you. And if it can't, you've got a computer usually within 15 feet that can. And people will not do their own research to verify whether or not something is accurate. And people are wondering where I'm going with this. I promise I'm about to bring it all together. There has been a picture that has been floated on pretty much every single Trump rally tweet and every single Trump inauguration tweet talking about these bikers that were supposedly headed to D.C. for the Trump inauguration. Great, so bikers are going to D.C. Here's the problem, though. The picture that they're using actually came from the Boston bombing ride that happened a long time ago.
Oh, I saw you talking about that earlier, and I didn't have time to follow up on whatever it was. Wow.
And that's where things like that become important. It's not necessarily some of the so-called fake news isn't even really being put out by news organizations. It's people that take pictures and they spin them into a new story and they make it look legitimate, and then they start passing it off on social media. And that's been happening more and more and more lately, and it happens on both sides. So if we're really going to start talking about the fake news thing, we need to realize that at this point, if anybody really wanted to, they can make their own news from their computer and they can make it look as legitimate as possible, because in between the computing technology that we have right now and the graphic manipulation programs that they have, you can make anything look legitimate. So we really need to be careful when we start saying, well, we're going to do this, this, and this to regulate fake news, because eventually they're going to have us back down to the point where nobody can access a computer but the important people because of fake news.
Right. It goes to where what is and isn't approved, which means there would be regulations. Who does the regulating? The state. That means we will surrender a free press. I hate the way that and I've seen it. I've seen it pass so much with a lot of progressives saying, well, no, but it would be good because. So they fundamentally misunderstand the privilege of a free press and the right we have to one. Because if they think that there is anything good about it, they're sorely mistaken.
No, exactly. But again, this all goes back to what I was talking about a second ago. We don't necessarily need governmental safeguards against so-called fake news. We need to remind people that they need to be encouraged to do their own research before they start passing around news stories. Again, I learned this the hard way because as someone that used to try to put out information on a Facebook page, I actually got popped more than once by somebody because I didn't research enough before I posted something, and I'd come back in a couple of days and they'd be like, hey, you realize that was a fake, that was like a satire thing, right? And I'm like, no, not really. But thanks for pointing it out. I'll get it deleted or print a retraction or something. But, that's the thing. It's about responsibility. And that's one of the, and I haven't had a chance to really talk about this because, like I said, I've been laid up for most of the week when the fake news stories were really hitting all over the place. I was like, I'd really like to be on the air talking about this, but I can't breathe. So that's why we're backtracking a little bit. But that's been a thought that's been bugging me for the entire time when these stories first started coming out. We're talking about government regulating what is or is not going to be considered acceptable news. And when we give them that type of power, it becomes just like everything else. Who watches the watchers? Who determines what we're going to... so we're talking about basically creating an American version of Pravda.
Well, so there's a very recent example, and no matter what people think of this, this person, this actually happened to him, but guess who the perpetrator was? The perpetrator of this quote unquote fake news, the way that they're using it, they've shifted how they define that. Fake news can either be completely made up, or it can mean a headline not representing the article, or it can mean something that just isn't important that people are pushing, and so fake news because it's not even real news. It's bounced all over the map, so that's part of the problem. But this one, the perpetrator was the New York Times. And they pushed what, I would say is a fake news story about Rick Perry and becoming, as far as his becoming the Secretary of Energy. It was really quite astounding, and it was because it was so subtle. So that makes me think that they were really trying to be very sneaky with this and plant a narrative to discredit Governor Perry and hopefully, completely make his nomination for this position just fall. So basically they printed a story called "Learning Curve as Rick Perry Pursues a Job He Initially Misunderstood." So when President-elect Donald J. Trump offered Rick Perry the job of Energy Secretary 5 weeks ago, Mr. Perry gladly accepted, believing he was taking on a role as a global ambassador for the American oil and gas industry that he had long championed in his home state. In the days after, Mr. Perry, the former Texas governor, discovered that he would be no such thing, that in fact, if confirmed by the Senate, he would become the steward of a vast national security complex he knew almost nothing about, caring for the most fearsome weapons on the planet, the United States nuclear arsenal. So then they go on to quote someone where they say, if you asked him on the first day, he said yes, he would have said, I want to be an advocate for energy. If you asked him now, he'd say, I'm serious about the challenges facing the nuclear complex. It's been a learning curve, as if he didn't know that had anything to do with it. Well, first of all, we know, so everyone runs with it, and you've got verified account after verified account from every major publication, printing versions of this story and hot takes on it and putting out tweets and all sorts of other things, such as Energy Secretary nominee Rick Perry not knowing that his future department maintains our nuclear arsenal is a nightmare scenario. You know, for Mr. Moniz, the future of nuclear science has been a lifelong obsession. He spent his early years working at the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center. Mr. Perry studied animal husbandry and led cheers at Texas A&M University. This is the most savage paragraph I've ever read. The guy Rick Perry would succeed as energy. Anyways, it just goes on and on and on. Well, Beckett Adams of the Washington Examiner says a media story in 4 acts. 1, clickbait headline. 2, shocking lead. 3, Barry Bland on the record quote cited in headline and 4th graph. 4, narrative. Push the narrative. And so they want, and then he says, to be clear, the New York Times report offers exactly zero support for its assertion Government Perry didn't know what the Department of Energy is. But, no mind. And it's actually the guy who they quoted. He said he had left the Trump's transition team months and months, almost a month ago. And he was just saying what he even says that his words were twisted and that he was saying what he thought might be kind of going through Perry's mind. He wasn't saying he didn't know anything about it or anything like that. And so he comes out and says that they have twisted his words, which of course the New York Times just doubled down on the story. But if you read Governor Perry's acceptance of the nomination for Secretary of Energy, which was given back in December, he acknowledges this. He didn't just find out about this. He knew this on the day of, and they're trying to make it seem like he never could have accepted or would have accepted if he had known that this was part of the job. He says it's a tremendous honor to be selected to serve as Secretary of Energy by President Trump, blah, blah, blah. I know American energy is critical to our economy and our security. I look forward to engaging in a conversation about the development, stewardship, and regulation of our energy sources, safeguarding our nuclear arsenal, and promoting an American energy policy that creates jobs and puts America first. Not to mention that where most of our nuclear arsenal is assembled and disassembled is in Amarillo, Texas, and he was governor of Texas for for a decade. So you think he doesn't know what this entails, and that the Department of Energy has been in his backyard this entire time, and he had no clue that this was part of their jurisdiction? I mean, it's actually insane.
Well, I mean, nobody ever said the left was smart.
So this is the New York Times perpetrating, quote unquote, fake news. And to make it worse, they have doubled down. They are going to stand by this piece. They are going to not retract anything. They aren't going to update or edit anything, even though the only reason that they even can sort of make the assumption that they put out there is from a guy who has come out and said that that's not what he said or how he said it, and they misused his quotes. So there's journalism for you right now. 2017, with just a few hours left to go in the Obama administration, that's what they're sticking with, despite the fact that they cannot believe that Hillary lost this election. They're still going to move forward this way.
Well, I mean, it's no different than all of the people now that are freaking out like the day before the inauguration, and like you were saying before we went on the air, there were people that were talking about how that the inauguration had to be stopped. That I don't remember who it was that you had said, but somebody had gone,
Rosie O'Donnell, good old Rosie.
Yeah. Why don't you go and talk about that, and then we'll take a break.
Okay, so she basically has been spending her hours for the last several days tweeting like a mad person, all caps. I mean, if anyone's ever seen Share Tweet, it kind of like that, but not as many emojis. It just seems very hysterical. It seems desperate and hysterical. And she is tweeting all these senators. She is tweeting people in government, people that are still in power, are not in power, and how we must postpone the inauguration. We cannot let him take office, and we don't have to, because we can postpone it because of investigations he should be under, or she thinks he's under, or I don't really know. But somehow there's legal justification in her mind for us to postpone this election, and it. Yes, martial law, okay, sure, but it doesn't have to be martial law. We could have John McCain be interim president. And it's hilarious that she is suggesting someone who she fought very hard against and also called a racist and a bigot and a misogynist and all sorts of other names, and completely inadequate and hates this and hates that, when he was running for president, is now who is going to be her savior so that Trump does not take office. It's really pretty laughable. But anyways, obviously none of that's going to happen. But she has been tweeting up a storm about resisting and about not letting this inauguration happen, and over her dead body. So I'll try not to trip over it.
All right, folks, we're going to take a really quick break. When we come back, we're actually going to talk more about the liberal left meltdown. And actually some weirdness going on the right. We'll talk a little bit more about the divide between Trumpers and never-Trumpers that seems to be getting even worse. Coming up right now, as soon as we get back from break on Jen and Rick. We'll be right back here in just a minute.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from the critique of the short story through to line edits on full-length novels. We also offer assistance on generating writers' bios for your websites. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate Formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. the few, the proud, the Marines.
Hey folks, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Harden. We are on the same mission, which is waking up America. We just have different paths. So stay tuned for some information on how you can keep up with Richard and all his work.
Visit Richard's website at raharden.com. That's the World Wide Web at RAHARDIN.com. At his website, you can see a summary of the 6 books he has written, where purchases may be made. He also has a link to 18 videos on YouTube and several blogs about Christian beliefs. If you prefer, visit Amazon.com/Kindle and type in Richard Harden to see and purchase his books.
And I jinxed myself. All right, folks, we are back. This is Jenn and Rick. Yeah, that's right. For about a second, you heard me coughing because I didn't realize I'd forgotten to mute myself while we were on break. Anyway, we're back, and I am trying not to die live on the air with you because I was just talking about how much better I was doing, and then as soon as I said it, my throat said, "Hey, you thought so." But anyway, so we're back, we're live, and we've been talking kind of all over the map, talking about the fact that Obama is finally leaving. I honestly, if I had time to get it ready, I was going to actually pull the the theme song from Jefferson's and play it on the way out just because they were leaving. But I thought people would probably call me a racist for doing that. Not that I really care. But anyway, so tomorrow's the day. We've talked about it now for months, and this is when it's really going to matter because up until now it's all been conjecture. Everybody's like, well, he's going to be a terrible president, and he's going to do terrible things. We don't know that yet. What I do know is that he did win the election, and he's going to be president, and therefore, as my president, I have to give him a shot. And that's why some of the things that are going on right now still have me really disturbed, because we have this entire group of people that, for whatever reason, will not even give the man a shot. I understand that there was bitterness. I understand that there was derision. I understand that people were really upset about how this election came to be and the fact that they didn't think this was going to happen and they thought that we weren't going to be here. But I thought I would see most of that on the left because I really thought, and it's what I told everybody from day one. Look, I'm going to fight all the way up until the point where fighting doesn't do me any good anymore. And then when I know who is actually going to be president, I will do my best to support them, whether it's going to be Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, because that is what I'm supposed to do as an American until they prove to me that they don't deserve my support, because I have respect for the office. And the reason I bring this up is because there was an article that was resurfacing again today talking about how Donald Trump had recently said that he thought most of the Never Trump movement was gone and whatever was left was basically on life support. That's not really true. Most of us that were Never Trump are now stuck with Trump because we know he's going to be POTUS. We don't want him to fail because rooting for him to fail is like being on the Titanic and rooting for the iceberg. It doesn't make any sense. But we have these group of people that are on the left and that are on the right that are now in effect doing just that. They're sitting on the Titanic deck cheering for an iceberg when there's not one anywhere near the horizon. They're hoping that something is going to go terribly wrong just so they can say, "I told you so." And that is really starting to annoy me.
Yeah, I can understand even the people that are like, I don't care to wait and see. I know how I feel about him, and he has to prove me wrong, not I have to wait and hope he doesn't screw up. I can understand that. I can understand being super critical and super harsh. What I don't understand is, and it's not the way I like to go about things, though I have a hard time not being that way with this particular person. But what I don't understand is berating anybody and everybody else, even among the people that that were, vehemently against his candidacy and his nomination, for any sort of goodwill that they are trying to put out there, any sort of way in which they are just trying to, quote unquote, wait and see, or for them just sometimes calling a spade a spade. If there is a good, if there's a good person nominated for a particular cabinet post, Like, it's okay to say that that's a good person for that cabinet post and not withhold doing so or just criticize it only because it was Trump's pick for the cabinet post. That is crazy to me. If it's a good pick, it's a good pick, and no matter who is president. So you can say that. That doesn't make you a Trumper. And I'm really sick of having to qualify everything that I say to my fellow anti-Trump right conservatives with, I didn't like him, I didn't vote for him, but with a huge big flag waving my arm saying, I didn't, but I'm going to say this one thing, and don't call me, an alt-righter and a whatever else you want to, and a Trumper, and just because I'm not criticizing something, or I'm barely having an opinion that Trumpers may or may not agree with. So this fear of like never being in line with them, fear of falling into the grouping of the alt-right or even of the wing of just GOP that isn't alt-right, just the GOP that kind of sold out for this and proved they were never true conservatives to begin with. They were center-right, but they were not conservatives. To risk, to not say what my true opinion is, or not be able to be objective about any of this just for fear of being lumped in with those people and being mistaken for one of them, is ludicrous to me. And I think it's really, intellectually dishonest of the people doing the accusing, and I think that it's unfair.
No, I couldn't agree more. And again, it's just been one of those things that, and I've seen as we've gotten closer and closer to Inauguration Day, it seems like it's getting worse, not better. And, it's not just the folks that are never Trump, because now we have the Trumpers, and a lot of them are still doing their victory lap, happy dance, whatever you want to call it. And that's getting a little old, too, when you're talking about the fact that at this point, we should be finding ways to come together again. Because first and foremost, we are all Americans. That is actually kind of what he ran on. He did it in a populist kind of way, but the message that he was trying to get across is at this point, we need a president who's going to put America first, remind us that we are all Americans, and that we need to stop dividing ourselves. And that was the reason why for about the first 3 weeks he was talking, that and the fact that he was running around like a bull in a china shop, I almost bought a ticket to the Trump train until I realized he didn't really have an off switch. Which brings up another interesting point, because remember how he always said that, after the election he would be more presidential? I watched him give a speech tonight. He's still being Donald Trump. I don't think he's ever going to not be who he is. And I'm not sure people are ready to deal with that, just to be completely honest. And it's not necessarily that it's a bad thing. I like some of the way that he is. I like the fact that he gives remarks off the cuff. I like the fact that he doesn't run things by 14 million focus groups before he decides to say anything. But I don't like the fact that he just, as common vernacular, like I don't remember who it was, but it was Kelly Conway. It was like, well, come on, I don't remember exactly how he put it, but it was like, come on up here, doll, or something like that, on her way up to the stage. And you could just see people in the audience just kind of looking at, did he really just say that? That's like from then, and it's just one of those things. But at this point, he's going to be who he is, and I don't think he's ever going to really soften anything around the edges like he kept promising he was going to do. I think what we see is what we're going to get, and I don't know if that's going to be a good or a bad thing, just to be completely honest.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't expect him. I expect him to have his moments. And another example is that press conference after with the folders and folders and folders of paper stacked next to him. And after this Russian dossier was printed, or this dossier about things in Russia was printed by BuzzFeed and then shared, by CNN and various other people. And until it got to the taking questions part, in which, that's the part that was the most replayed. And he said, fake news, moving, which, by the way, I died. I laughed so hard. I thought it was really funny. And it didn't make me mad at all. And no, people, let's talk about what the definition of a free press is. That doesn't mean that you get to demand that the leader of the country answer any and every question and call on you every time that you want to ask one. That is not what a free press is. So it's not the death of freedom of the press because he told CNN to screw off. I'm sorry, get over it. But it was interesting, though, because everything before that, I could not believe how serious and calm and measured he was in giving this press conference that was about something that we know he would tweet away furiously on Twitter about. And it didn't even seem like he was really holding anything in, which kind of makes me wonder if he is one of these people that, we know that he knows how to play the game and play the room. But can he really? I thought he was more of a loose cannon. Maybe he's not. Maybe he does have the ability to switch it on and off, but he prefers to leave it on because it's what got him this far.
Yeah, you could have a point. It's interesting that you bring up this whole idea of everybody freaking out because they think he's going to not understand the free press and attack it. And that was honestly one of the things that I was afraid of at first, too. And I'm still kind of waiting to see what happens. But there's been a lot of noise from the White House press corps lately because apparently he's talking about moving the press briefings to the executive offices instead of actually having them in the White House. And so everybody starts talking about that, and they're like, oh my God, he's moving them away from the White House. What's he doing this for? What's he doing that for? Why would he do that? That's terrible. But they don't listen to the rest of why he said he was wanting to do that. First of all, there's more room for them to come together in that building, and that's where most of them already work anyway. So it's going to make it a lot easier for them to actually get to the briefing or get to the meetings, the briefings, press conferences, etc. And there's going to be more room. So he's actually talking about widening the scope of the pool. Not only that, but the reason he's moving them over there is because they're talking about remodeling the area where the room is now, where they hold all the press briefings and the conferences, so that they can accommodate more people, because he actually wants to expand the number of people that are able to take questions and be present when there's a press conference, which I think is a good thing. I mean, there are things that he's done that I'm kind of like Pruitt is the director of the EPA. To me, that is a really smart move. And I'm going to talk about something just for a second that I talked about on last night's Off the Rails. One of the things that impressed the fire out of me was listening to Scott Pruitt yesterday being grilled by Bernie Sanders and him trying to say that, that climate change is climate change. We don't have any proof as to how much of it is man-made, but I will admit to you that the climate is changing. Everybody knows that. Well, sir, I'm asking you for your opinion on climate change. Senator, my opinion on climate change doesn't matter, because as the director of the EPA, it will be my job to enforce the laws that you people send to me. That will be my job as the director of the EPA. And I thought that was priceless. And it was, yes. I actually stopped it in the middle of the show and just yelled, because I was like, finally, somebody that understands that government is not about opinion polls. It's about upholding the law.
Yes, absolutely. I thought that was absolutely wonderful. Also, someone else who kind of had a response that I really liked, and I can't remember the exact. I don't have the quote pulled, but Mattis, when they were trying to trap him on gays in the military, and they were trying to. It was definitely set up to be a gotcha, and he just very plainly, very matter-of-factly said, I really don't care what two consenting adults do in the bedroom. I care about what their capability is under my direction. Period. Boom. If they can do their job the way I need them to do it. That's all I care about. And it was like, you could tell that they probably had some follow-up questions, but he shut the topic down, because that is what it should be. That is exactly what it should be. Just like this answer you're talking about was exactly how it should be. I do not get an opinion on these things. I have to enforce them as they are, and I have to uphold the law. This is so silly to try to trap them into these opinions and to worry about, oh gosh, what is the most recent one about the governor who once prayed for rain? Oh my gosh, are you kidding? That's going to be a disqualifier. They're more offended about someone praying to a Christian God than they are, about just so many awful things, including all of these protests that are absolutely asinine. But whatever. That's the left.
Speaking of gotcha moments, somebody thought they got me on Twitter today, because that nice new thing where you can quote tweet things that other people say and kind of take it off on its own little thread. Because I actually had kind of tweeted out a shorter version of what I just said on the air, and then I quote tweeted it myself and said exactly what I just said. Finally, somebody that understands that government isn't about opinion, but about actually governing and upholding the law. So somebody quote tweeted that, and they said, well, if it's not about opinion, what's the big deal about Roe v. Wade? And I'm like, uh-oh, somebody thinks they got me. He never responded to my answer, though, so I'm wondering if he just gave up. Because what I said was, who in the world is trying to stop Roe v. Wade? But there's one very important thing about Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade intended that abortion be safe, legal, and rare. And he never said a word again. So,
hashtag winning.
Because let's face it, that was the intent of Roe v. Wade. It was to get women out of dark alleys with rusty coat hangers and make sure that they would survive the procedures if they deemed them as a last resort, not the MIC abortions that Planned Parenthood offers every single day.
Yeah, I mean, that is completely, this women's march, in this vein, this women's march is not allowing or is not welcoming pro-life women. So you have to be in line with this idea, and I hesitate to call them pro-choice because so many of them now are actually pro-abortion, like actually pro-abortion. There are things being said all the time about how it's actually so much more empathetic, and how you are by aborting your child instead of and by supporting abortion, you are saving this country in a way because you're just helping pay for the birth control or the abortion through funding whoever, which that always gets them because then they admit that some of our money does go to that, even though they say it doesn't. For the abortions, instead of having mouths to feed on welfare, which you Republicans hate so much for 18 plus years. I mean, what kind of sick and twisted thinking? I just can't even with those people. And that's where I'll show my millennial. I just can't even.
No, if you were a true millennial, you would have found a way to say that with like 5 letters. Just saying.
That's true. That's true.
All right, but but that's the thing. It's all become so sick and twisted. It's like this whole Bradley Manning thing. And yes, I still call him Bradley Manning because he was born a man. As far as I know, he hasn't had the subtract a penis from me surgery. So as far as I know, he is still a man downstairs. And that is where my distinction is. Because I understand that in some instances, with this whole, let the people go to the bathroom in the bathroom that they identify with, I understand that to a point because there are people that have had major hormones or parts of the surgeries. So from an outward appearance, they look more like the gender that they're going into the restroom for. So in some ways, it actually makes sense to give them that ability. But what we're talking about here is the fact that we are normalizing things like transgender behavior. And the thing that almost every single psychological paper that I can find about transgender behavior is that every single psychologist that I can see that talks about it admits that it is a deviant behavior and that is a problem because it's giving people an unsafe and unhealthy self-image because they're not seeing themselves as they truly are. We're feeding a delusion. This is happening in so many different ways now. We now have this group of people that are now calling themselves transabled because they identify with having a disability that they actually don't have. And they're going out of the way to give themselves the disability that they think they should have. So that
they're actually harming themselves so that they can have an amputation or so that they can no longer walk or so that they have to. I mean, that is some other level mental, craziness that I can't even understand. And it's, when you really look at the bottom line here, it's hard to distinguish that from what you're talking about with, some people want to say gender dysphoria or whatever, that because people are removing body parts to do that as well or adding them. And don't forget Rachel Dolezal and transracial.
But I mean, that's the whole thing. We have this entire thing now where we're basically just feeding people's delusions. I mean, I don't understand that. We are perpetuating mental health issues because we're trying to make people feel better.
Right. Or we don't want them to be labeled as anything different. But, it's kind of interesting that on this front, we're normalizing some sort of mental defect or, just issues. And then there's other ways in which we are growing them larger to encompass more people, like the autism spectrum. It just gets longer and longer and larger and larger. And we have no problem labeling those people. And in fact, there are studies done saying that they are probably overdiagnosing autism in kids too young to be able to really tell if that's actually what level, what stage, what grade of it that they have, if they have it at all. They are overdiagnosing ADD and ADHD. They're overdiagnosing depression. They're this is becoming a common thing. And so we're not afraid to label all of those things and shove medication at people and treatment and therapy and whatever. But then something like transgenderism, we are trying to normalize and say, you don't really need therapy. You're perfect the way you are, except for if you have these surgical things that can happen if you dress different and if you grow your hair and if you take hormones and if you put on makeup and, any of those things. But other than that, you are you, darling. And it's really disturbing.
You're fabulous. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I just Somebody's going to yell at me for that one again. I actually got in trouble for using that on Twitter once because I'm a straight guy and I shouldn't do
that. Whatever.
Anyway.
Whatever.
So, believe it or not, we are almost officially out of time. So, over under on Liberal Meltdown for tomorrow, and how long do you think it's going to last?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to be watching. I'll probably be live tweeting if anyone wants to miserably follow along with me. But I am kind of watching, partially, I just do anyways. I watch all this stuff. I'm a political junkie. But I think that I'm really kind of interested to see what the crazies do. Like, what do they really do? This could be an interesting inauguration as far as the activities going on surrounding it outside. I've heard some people say that the security is like nothing they've ever seen in D.C., including having been at past inaugurations. So, it's certainly a heightened situation there, and emotions are running very high, and people are extremely excited and extremely angry. So I think it's going to be kind of a Molotov cocktail, and I hope no one gets hurt. I'm just interested to see kind of how it all plays out and if anything actually goes down, if these people that claim they're going to stop him even attempt anything radical and ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. As far as over under, I know there will be some liberal meltdown because there's already been liberal meltdowns tonight. Apparently, there's already been riots and pepper spray used outside of the deplorable, which, I'm kind of whatever on that one. But so I'm pretty sure the crazy is going to continue. I have a feeling that the liberal meltdown probably will not stop for at least the next 2 years, depending on what happens in the upcoming election cycle. One of the things, and I'm just going to put them on notice now, that has me concerned is I'm already hearing Republicans talking about basically almost infinitely raising the debt ceiling. I have a problem with this. As a conservative who wants to rein in spending, I have a problem when a Republican Congress is suddenly talking about raising the debt ceiling to the point where it becomes irrelevant. And if they do that, I'm going to have an issue. And that means I'm going to have to do my best to make sure that whoever puts their name to that particular idea doesn't have a seat in 2 years. So be warned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the meltdown's going to continue on and on and on. And holy cow, if he's reelected, it's never going to end. And to be fair, the rights really didn't either with Obama. There was a huge portion of the right that was just in perpetual meltdown mode about everything he did or said. So, that's politics.
Yeah, I do have to say, because as one of the ones that had been railing against him for a while, I do think that we were at least a little more civil about it, but I didn't hang out with everybody that did it, so I'm sure maybe it was going on in ways that I didn't know about, so who knows. But all right, so if you're just now tuning in and expecting America Off the Rails to start here in just a minute, unfortunately that will not be happening tonight because my voice cannot do another hour of radio. So if you haven't been listening for this one, stay tuned. It'll shut off in just a second. You can hit play and start it all over again. And I will be on CRN on Saturday night and Sunday night, so you can always listen over there. And I'll be back with you live right here on KLRN Radio on Monday, provided I ever get my voice back, because it just doesn't seem to want to come back. On that note, folks, we are out. This has been Jen and Rick. As usual, ma'am, why don't you remind folks where it is that they can hang out with you when you're not on the radio, hanging out with me while we get ready to get out the door.
Sure. Just come find me over on Twitter. That's where I spend most of my time, at J Homestead, and check out my Misfits over at misfitspolitics.com.
All right, and you can hang out with me anytime you want on Twitter at AOTR_host, and I'm out before I start coughing in your ear. You guys have a great night. Take care.
I'm not ready to back down, 'cause I've been through